Good morning and welcome into Cards Hub 365. I am Ethan Hannaford. He is Stefan Caray. We are here to break down all of the action from last night's game and give you a little preview of what is to come. In game number 2, Cards versus Snakes, Matthew Liberatore, Merrill Kelly. Listen, Stefan, good to be with you again. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about another pitcher's duel, kind of similar to what we saw last night. A fun energy in the crowd last night, but also some very good quality baseball. And you look at the two pitchers that are going at it today. We're going to talk. Well, obviously, we'll dive into this a little bit, but has the potential to once again be another good contest this afternoon.
Yeah, you and Chris Pelican are on the same line of thinking. These are two teams that match up extremely well against one another. 4-3, the fact that it was a one-run game yesterday. Yes, Gabby Moreno's two-run home run, the ninth, made it as close as it was. But it doesn't surprise me a bit that these two teams are playing close games against one another. This was a series that was determined by just a few runs last year. The main outlier between these two teams is a 14-1 victory for the D-backs in that second series against the Cardinals. So they've always played each other pretty tight, especially over the last few seasons as the two teams have been more comparable. But I think today you're going to see more of Matthew Liberatore. You're going to see a great job by Merrill Kelly, who's coming off one of his best starts of the year. And it's just going to be up to the Cardinals offense once again without Wilson Contreras to find a way to push across some runs and do it early, middle, and late in the game.
Just a reminder that Cards Hub 365 is powered by Gray Bar here on Sports Hub STL and presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later as well. This first comment, I got to put it up there just for laughs real quick. From Leo, I swear to God, if the ump today is as bad as the guy last night, I will have an aneurysm. So I want to just for a second hit on Ollie Marmol's ejection last night because it continues to kind of be a point and the fan base kind of jokes around with it. When Ollie gets fired, when Ollie gets ejected, the fan base, the team gets fired up. And last night, kind of another example of that again. And it felt like you felt the fan base behind him a little bit when he's chopping it up with last night's home plate umpire. Maybe it's more fans being in the ballpark. Maybe it's the fans recognizing that the Cardinals are in a good spot and that perhaps the manager has something to do with that. Maybe there's no correlation at all. But last night was pretty entertaining watching Ollie Marmol get some words out following his frustrations around the strike zone.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, again, I've talked about it ad nauseum about the start of this winning streak, or really when things kind of turned around for this club. And I think it was when he got ejected in Cincinnati. And there is a method to getting ejected. There's a method to the madness of it. There is certainly an element of getting your team fired up, picking your spots, picking the right moment. But I don't think we should be too hard on the home plate umpire. Yes, the strike zone was a little bit malleable. It was a little bit bigger and expanded than you would have liked it to be. But the D-backs were on the receiving end of some not great calls either.
Sure.
Not to play devil's advocate, but Corbin Carroll was rung up on strike 3 on a ball at his chin yesterday early in the game.
Terrible.
So, you need to make sure that you apply the same criticism on both sides. But it was in that moment for Ivan Herrera, down by a run. You have your best hitter on the team right now, and I think it's safe to say that he is at this point in time. Runner on first, 3-2, nobody out, down a run on a ball that was pretty obviously low. That was a good moment for Ollie, but I don't think he said anything that was too reprehensible. That was what you were seeing in the replay, is he was saying something along the lines of, from what you could see through the lip reading, are you really that sensitive? Are you really that soft to throw him out after just one? And the rule is, by letter of the law, as soon as you argue balls and strikes, you're out. So some umpires have a little bit more tolerance than others. But in that moment, I think he had been hearing it from both sides and frustration boiled over. But credit to Daniel Descalso for managing the rest of the way and doing a really nice job in game one.
Victor Scott last night, 2 for 3 with 2 singles. He continues to have an impact on the offensive side. Listen, we all had, I think, an idea of what the kind of player that Victor Scott was going to be, right, when he started to make his way through the minors, and we knew about the glove, we knew about the speed, and the record-breaking season that he had on the base paths a couple of years ago. But I don't know, especially after the start of last year, if anyone expected for the bat to play the way that it has. And it's not that it's been out of this world, but for a guy like Victor Scott to be batting 253 with a 355 on-base percentage, an OPS just shy of 750, I have to at least imagine that at this point of his career is far north of what a lot of people expected from him from an offensive perspective. And there's a lot of different qualities from Victor Scott that if you see the work that he's putting in, you say, oh, well, it doesn't surprise me. The amount of research that he is doing on the greats and the guys that he is lined up with similarly in the sense of good defensive players with speed, and what it takes to mimic a lot of those guys and to be great. Victor Scott has been a huge piece for this Cardinals lineup in the 9 spot, being able to extend out the top of the lineup and set up RBI opportunities consistently for Lars Nootbaar, for Mason Wynn, for Brendan Donovan at the top of the lineup. And the speed clearly plays. And as mentioned, a 355 on-base percentage. This is a guy that the whole thing was, if he can get on base, he's going to wreak havoc. Stefan, he's getting on base, and as a result, he's wreaking havoc.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that this is a player that when he gets on first base, your odds of scoring skyrocket. And that can't be said about every player in Major League Baseball. That can't be said about every player on this roster. But when Victor Scott gets on first, like he did in that 6th inning, where they rattled off a bunch of base runners, this team changes. They really rally around the idea that they can score, they can run, they can go and do fundamental baseball that other teams can't.
Yeah.
They have such an X factor on the bases that a single means you're going first to third with Victor Scott. A double guarantees a run. You get him to second with 1 out. There's a million different things that you can do with that. And he has been sneakily one of the big MVPs of this team this season. And speed kills. The Diamondbacks have proven that speed kills with Carroll, with Geraldo Perdomo, all the guys that they have that can really run. But Victor Scott has just been able to be such a big X factor for this squad. And I like seeing him at the bottom of the order feeding the top. I think it's worked out perfectly. In a perfect world, maybe in 1980, he would be your everyday leadoff guy. But Lars Nootbaar is so good at controlling the strike zone that, you have the best of both worlds. So I think that Victor Scott is really going to provide some more today, especially against Merrill Kelly. He's just really done well against some of the top-end starters in the National League.
Victor Scott tied for 3rd in stolen bases in the National League with Pete Crow Armstrong and Kyle Tucker. Only Oneil Cruz and Ellie De La Cruz have more stolen bases in the National League than Victor Scott the second. And then as well, something that I think is an interesting stat that stands, I think, means something, and you can take something from this, right, is when you look at the total runs scored on this Cardinal roster, Lars Nootbaar, no surprise there, leading the charge with 32 runs scored. He's followed by Donovan and Wynn, who have 28 and 27 respectively. All 3 guys that are at the top of the lineup. Victor Scott follows them with 26 runs scored, and he's batting 9th. He's getting considerably less at-bats when you tally it up throughout the year, but he's still being able to score practically the same amount of runs as the 3 guys at the top of the lineup. I think that's pretty telling as you mentioned, speed kills. And you mentioned the Diamondbacks and their ability to run. Very few people in baseball run better than Corbin Carroll, and last night, the Cardinals able to limit him. They kept him quiet in the Friday night action. As I pull up the box score here, Carroll going 0 for 5. Yeah, baby, we like hearing that. With a strikeout.
Well, one of us likes to hear that. Always will root for Corbin. There's a big bit of ambivalence for me with this series, and I really would love to see them rattling off their hits and making sure that they continue to have great at bats. They don't fall out of rhythm. If the Cardinals get the win, that's the best possible outcome. But to see all those guys that I was with, I never want to see them fail. It's so difficult because you get to know them on a personal level. And Corbin is just the best of the best. I mean, I could give an anecdote, but this is a Cardinals show, so I have to put my former D-backs hat away. But it was great for the Cardinals to be able to do that, to be able to hold him to 0 for 5, because similarly to Victor Scott, you put that guy on first, he's going to score more often than he isn't. Yeah. And in a one-run game, Corbin not being on base once is something that you can look back to and say, hey, this is the reason why the Cardinals succeeded. This is a huge reason why the Cardinals succeeded. I know we won't see him in the lineup today, but that's a big, big bullet dodged for St. Louis to keep off one of the best players in all of baseball, probably a top 10, arguably top 5 player in all of baseball off the bases in game 1.
And they talked about it in the broadcast last night as well. Trailing 4-1 in the top of the 9th, and Moreno hits the 2-run bomb. And just as importantly, it's not getting the tying run to the plate, but it's who it is. And it was Corbin Carroll. So, I mean, that was, if you're a fan of the dramatic, that's your situation right there. Corbin Carroll stepping up to the plate, following the D-backs, just getting it to a 1-run game. A player, that has had so much success early in his career in Major League Baseball, and Helsley gets him to pop out to third. That's your situation right there that you want yourself to be in. And fortunately, Helsley ends up winning that matchup despite being a little bit shaky once again in the 9th inning. And for those that need some context, Stefan was formerly a broadcaster for the Amarillo Sod Poodles, the AA affiliate of the Diamondbacks. If anyone who's entering saying, what is the love for the Diamondbacks and for Corbin Carroll? Well, he had the privilege to get really close with a lot of these guys as the Diamondbacks continue to get younger and continue to improve their farm system in Amarillo. A lot of success coming from there in the past several years. So I can't imagine the amount of experiences and opportunities that provided for you as your broadcasting journey continues. But as we continue moving forward here with Card Sub 365, as mentioned last night, the Cardinals 4-3 winners. The last thing I'll harp on before we move on and talk a little bit more about today's game, you look in the hit column last night, and the Cardinals only manufacturing 4 hits. This is a game that it felt like, even though it was 1-0 for a good portion of it, it felt like this was a game that Arizona really controlled. It didn't feel like it was a game that was at a stalemate and back. It felt Zach Gallen was rolling. You mentioned last night on the post-game show the knuckle curve. The Cardinals were not adjusting to it. And at some point, things clicked, and it just takes one inning. And the last night's game was proof of that, following the 6th inning where the Cardinals put a 4 spot up, and all of a sudden the game's in your hands.
Well, let's look back to the Dodgers starting in 2020. Their dynasty, I know they've won 2 World Series since then, but baseball's tough to have dynasties. It's tough to be so consistently good as they have been. And yes, there are a number of variables that you can point to as to why, but one of the big ones was on that team was Corey Seager, was Cody Bellinger, guys that wouldn't expand their zone. Watching them play, I mean, even borderline pitches, they weren't even throwing their hands at. So the Cardinals, when they spit on pitches and they can work counts, they're as good as any team in baseball. If you can do that and you can give yourselves free base runners by earning it, I think that this is a team that can compete with just about anyone. Now, it was an uncharacteristic game for the Diamondbacks. Zach Gallen has struggled mightily this year. He looked extremely sharp. Yes, things kind of imploded on him a little bit in the 6th inning after a few walks, but everything was working for him. Where it was also different is this is a D-backs team that is sort of known for their offense. They have, a 70 home run squad this year. Yep. They're a team that can really hit the ball out of the ballpark. I think it's 71 now with Ketel Marte's drive into right center. But they weren't scoring. They weren't giving Gallen any run support. Gallen was pitching well, which you're used to seeing in years past, but this year it's been sort of touch and feel. The offense just didn't show up for Arizona, and it gave the Cardinals just enough of a window to come back in this one. But I don't know about you. You and me have our separate conversations as the game's going on, and I have conversations with my dad who wasn't working. I was nervous. I was really nervous. It looked like one of those games, or maybe the beginning of one of these stretches where the Cardinals bats go quiet after Wednesday's game against the Tigers. They lose 5-1. They don't look like they can hit anything. And through the first 5 innings of game one of this series,
does it steamroll? Does it roll? Does it fall apart?
It's almost like it snowballed. And they found a way, even though they weren't necessarily driving the ball every which way in this game, they found a way to win. And that's what good teams do. So we'll see if the Diamondbacks try and have their get back today. But it was really encouraging to see them stop that back-to-back losing slide and put a W back in the column.
You bring up a good question in mind here. Talking to Pops last night. He has the off night with the Apple TV broadcast. What's Chip Caray doing on an off night when the Cardinals are still playing at home? What's he up to?
Chip Caray was at the game because he has
no life.
No,
that's all he has.
Not even a little bit. Not even all of his friends that are on the radio side are working. So he's sitting there in the writing press room, probably messing with Katie Wu and making inside jokes with all the people that work in there, all the great folks with the Cardinals. But he's sitting there in whatever $10 t-shirt he has that has weird designs like Pac-Man or cats that he thinks is high fashion. But no, he loves to be at the ballpark. He and I don't mean to speak for him here and not to get too sappy and sentimental, but I will say this, is that my dad is so rewarded and humbled by the opportunity to get to work for the St. Louis Cardinals. Beyond anything that you can even imagine, is he loves going to work every single day. He loves being a broadcaster regardless, but there is a level of happiness that he exhibits on the day-to-day, whether it's on the phone or seeing him at work or being around him in that atmosphere that's palpable. And it's different than anything I've ever seen from him throughout the entirety of my 25 years. So he wants to be around it. He loves being around it, good, bad, or ugly. And I think that everybody else should take a page out of that book and try to be around it. Come out to Busch Stadium because it's truly going to be a magical team, I think, this year. Regardless of if they win the World Series, they're playing a good brand of baseball, and you're starting to see the building blocks be put together into something special.
Very well said. And it's been a lot of fun with your dad on the call here these last couple of years, and getting to work with him as well. I can confirm the cheap Hawaiian or weird printed shirts. Excuse me. I have a memory a couple of years ago, Cards Dodgers. It's a Saturday night game on Fox, and he's wearing this Hawaiian shirt, and it was in an identical situation. Chip comes in, but he comes in and he hangs with the radio guys still, despite them working. And he comes in and he hangs out. And I picked his brain on broadcasting for 2.5 hours, and I didn't even know him at this point. It was like very beginning of the season. So very, very early Chip Caray memory for myself. But and you bring up a good point as well. That your dad loving just being at the ballpark because of what it stands for with the Cardinals. I think fans are starting to get back to that. Last night, better crowd, still not quite to what Cardinal Nation is used to of old, but I think 34,000 in attendance last year. So we're starting to get back to that point. Fans are starting to connect it. Holiday weekend, people got other stuff going on. But regardless, a better crowd last night. So we'll take that. We'll hope that the afternoon crowd is once again solid today. I know they got all kinds of different fun things going on at the ballpark with the holiday and everything. So be sure to go and check that out. This is Cards Up 365. He is Stefan Caray. I'm Ethan Hannaford. And as always, it is powered by Gray Bar here on Sports Hub STL and presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play. $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, Stefan, we got a ball game to talk about today. Cardinals, Diamondbacks, Liberatore, Kelly. The Cardinals have set themselves up perfectly, as they did in the previous series. Weren't able to do so, but they have set themselves up perfectly to be able to win another series and against another good team. Let's go ahead and let's take the people through the lineups for today, and we'll start off with the Cardinals. Lars Nootbaar starting things off at the top of the lineup. He'll be in left field today. Mason Wynn batting second at short. He'll be followed by Brendan Donovan, who is playing second base in the cleanup spot. Designated hitter Ivan Herrera. In the 5 spot, Alec Burleson. He is at first base today, batting sixth is Nolan Arenado, who is playing the hot corner per usual. 7, 8, 9 looks like Jordan Walker in right. Victor Scott in center. And Joel Pozo is behind the plate catching. And you heard the surprise in my voice. Victor Scott in the 8th spot today, rather than in the 9 spot. Pozo is, been very serviceable. You could argue more than serviceable at the plate offensively this year. So not that it's the craziest thing in the world. You still have a solid offensive piece. But I'm still a little bit surprised to see Ollie Marmol shaking that up and rolling with Scott in the 8th spot rather than the 9th spot. Your thoughts?
I really like the decision because of what we just talked about with Victor Scott. He gets on first base, he steals second. Let's say he's the number 8 hitter that is up with 1 out in the 3rd inning. He gets a single or walks, finds a way to get to second. Now you get an RBI chance for Pozo, who's been able to deliver more consistently than not. So they're almost looking at this, and I'm not speaking anything more than just my own opinion on this matter, but you can kind of look at this like a leadoff man number 2 hitter situation, but in the 8 and 9 spots. So you want a little bit more power. You want a little bit more RBI acumen. And I think that this is going to work out for Victor in terms of being able to score runs if Pozo can drive the ball home. So you're going to see production top to bottom in the order today, I think. One thing about Merrill Kelly is he's got a lot of strikeouts, 52 of them this year. Liberatore, another high strikeout pitcher. So I think they've just got to find a way to put the ball in play. They've got to find a way to take pitches and not let him get rolling like he did his last time out. But I don't mind this. I obviously have loved what I've seen from Victor Scott, but keep moving them around. Let them get comfortable, but keep moving them around. Make sure that everybody's fresh. They're excited about different roles, having to do different things. Because again, at the end of the day, this year is all about learning everything you can about each player. Where do they hit best? What do they do best? And we've seen an example with Mason Wynn. Bottom of the order wasn't great. Number 2, fantastic. Has hit well out of the leadoff spot at times. So I think that this is just another example of that, just trying to see what you have and what they're able to do moving forward.
Yeah, and this Cardinals lineup has proven their ability to put the ball in play. I don't know specifically what the strikeout numbers compare to the remainder of the league, but I have to imagine that they have to be pretty decent because, as mentioned, this Cardinals team puts the ball in play a pretty considerable amount. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up against Merrill Kelly, who is 5-2 on the year with a 3.26 ERA, continues to have a solid season. He's been very good and very impressive in his time in the majors up to this point. Let's go ahead and talk about the Diamondbacks lineup here for a second. Then we'll hop back on the Cardinals for a moment. Ketel Marte DHing to lead things off. He'll be followed by Geraldo Perdomo, who is at shortstop. Gurriel Jr. is in left field. Suarez at third. Josh Naylor at first base, batting fifth. Gabe Moreno at sixth behind the plate. Randall Grichuk, former Cardinal, batting seventh. Tawa in center, batting eighth. And Lawler at second base, batting ninth. Listen, you have much more familiarity with some of these D-backs than I do. What do you like about this lineup? What stands out to you? And what makes them, even without Corbin Carroll, a threat at the plate against Matthew Liberatore today?
Well, I think just by looking at this lineup, you've seen exactly what they're doing. and they're playing the matchup game. You have two switch hitters at the top of the order with Marte and Perdomo. And then outside of Josh Naylor, they're all right-handed hitters. So Corbin wasn't really going to find a spot here today, despite him being one of the best players in baseball. They want to play the splits. They want to play the matchup game here. You have Pavin Smith that can come off the bench, but he's left-handed. He's been the DH first base option against righties. So they're leaving Naylor in there for that bat a little bit more. See Tawa at the bottom of the order. He was with me in Amarillo for 3 years. He's been a great addition to them off the bench, especially as their super utility player. He's hit 5 home runs. Jordan Lawler is another interesting case. I mean, again, a top 10 prospect in baseball, but has been struggling to see at bats this year for the Diamondbacks and has yet to record a hit. He's one of those players that you feel like needs to get more playing time, but he's crowded. He's certainly blocked by a lot of the talent the D-backs have, but he's done everything he needs to do in AAA. So you see a lot of righties. Matthew Liberatore is going to have to make sure that he controls the strike zone, make sure he doesn't leave anything hanging. And I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like when you see a lot of power coming at Busch Stadium, and I might be completely wrong here, it's coming more from the left side rather than the right side this season. So I don't expect a ton of home runs from the Diamondbacks, even though they're a really good home run hitting team. But you have to be able to control left center as well. The gaps are going to be important. You eliminate that speed of Carroll. This is a really, really good lineup top to bottom. You have speed at the top, speed at the bottom, and then a whole lot of power in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, Eugenio Suarez, 14 home runs. Anytime you can settle him down or keep him in the ballpark is a positive. Ketel Marte continues to impress. Perdomo is having a great. Is this his sophomore campaign or is this
No.
season 3?
I think it's closer to season 4.
Is it really? Oh my goodness!
Wow,
the years are flying with him. Well, he continues to. What I was going to say is he continues to just develop and grow as a guy that is now not just a defensive piece or a guy that was off to a hot start at the beginning of his career, but now a guy that is really structured into the heart of that Diamondbacks lineup. So another guy, a very credible start here in the first several years of his major league career. This is a solid lineup, as you mentioned, but I am more than confident in the guy that the Cardinals are sending out on the mound today, and Matthew Liberatore, who has been absolutely electric to start off 2025. And I think that in a lot of ways has added a lot of optimism around the future of Cardinal pitching. When you look at who has redeemed themselves, for lack of better terms, from what the expectation was for him prior to the year to where it is now, Matthew Liberatore has to be one of, if not the top guys in the Cardinal organization to be able to do so. He's been phenomenal this year. I love the pitch sequencing that he has used this year. To me, when you look at the transition between 2023 and 2025, and 24 was a huge season for that, where a lot of that transitioning happened. But the sequencing, in my opinion, screams confidence growth. This is a guy that was very predictable, it felt like, early in his major league career, to where now this is a guy that is being able to throw 4, 5, 6 pitches at you that all play. There doesn't seem to be a weak spot in this arsenal. And the slider has grown into his best pitch. That's a pitch that people weren't even talking about a year and a half ago. And going from a situation a couple of years ago, a guy that was struggling with walks, getting hit around a lot, to last year, where he was kind of thrown in what Steven Matz is now, a guy that is starting a little bit, he's relieving a little bit, still struggled as a starter, but when he's getting those one-inning opportunities, just seeing guys once, I think he started to recognize that his stuff plays. And now he's been able to turn that into, it's not just one time through the lineup now that he can have that success. He recognized the stuff that he has, not to say he didn't before, but we all know the noise and the challenges that he had to endure with everything and all the success that Randy Arozarena was having. I think he's well beyond that now. Like I said, the stuff is playing. I have no lack of confidence that Matthew Liberatore cannot go out and shove against just about any team in Major League Baseball right now with what we have seen from him early in the year. I don't think that this is a flash in the pan. I think Matthew Liberatore's success is here to stay, Stefan.
I totally agree. And again, it's that patience. It's that patience from the Cardinals. despite his struggles. And I wouldn't say he's redeemed himself. I would say he's proven himself at this point in time. That might be the better way of saying it. Is that he was a young player that was tossed into wearing different hats for this team. And rightfully so, he had his fair share of struggles. Now he looks like the front of the rotation guy that you wanted him to be. And if you can supplement him with other players over the next few years, whether it's Quinn Matthews, Tink Hence, Tekoa Roby, all those guys who have thrown pretty well over the last few seasons, this is going to be a very good rotation, and he might be the ace of your rotation. I've likened Matthew Liberatore the last few seasons to Garrett Crochet, because remember, Garrett Crochet had his time in the bullpen when he was with the White Sox to start and found a way to become one of the best starters in baseball. So I think Liberatore has a chance to be really, really good. Now, the Diamondbacks are a difficult test. He's already had difficult tests. He's passed each test pretty much with flying colors this year. This will just be another one for him, and we'll just see how it goes.
Cardinals and Diamondbacks at 1:15 today. I'm pulling up the weather to see how things are going to be looking downtown. If you don't have anything going on here on this Memorial Day weekend, then might be a good afternoon to head on down to the ballpark. I'm looking and I'm seeing high 60s, low 70s, a little bit of wind. I'm telling you what, Stefan, it sounds like a good afternoon for some Cardinal baseball at Busch Stadium. I don't know if you ask me, it's my personal opinion here. But what will be happening for sure, as always, is Cardinals coverage right here on Sports Hub STL in the postgame. Myself and Chris Pelican will be on that one. And as we get ready to say adios here, Stefan, any final remarks to the people heading into Game 2 of the series?
No, it's going to be a fantastic game. Thanks so much for joining us here on Cards Hub 365. Ethan, it's always a pleasure working with you. And hopefully the Cardinals can get another series win and make it 15 of their last 19.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. He is Stefan Caray. I am Ethan Hannaford. This has been Cards Hub 365 on Sports Hub STL.